welcome back. Today I'm doing something a little different. I think I'm kind of merging Kumi cakes with YouTube. So I've mentioned it many times before, but I do have a baking Instagram account, and I thought, because I love crumbl, as most people do, I would make crumbl cookie replica. And if you've never had crumbl, they're like this branch that's like recently opened, but it's like expanding so quickly, and they have these really giant cookies and they change them every week. And because Valentine's Day is soon, I wanted to make like a red velvet replica. And so I'm going to be doing that now. And I've never baked on this channel before, so something new. Let's hope I don't mess it up. For ingredients, I have my dry ingredients here. I have flour, cornstarch, which is a lot of cornstarch. I was surprised. A fourth cup, and usually cornstarch makes like cookies more tender, I guess, but I was surprised at the amount. This is half a teaspoon salt, half a teaspoon baking powder, cocoa powder. I have vanilla. People put vanilla in like every dessert, and I don't know if it really matters, but I love vanilla. It just seems odd to put it in like chocolate and red velvet desserts, but people do it, so I guess it has some impact. I have white sugar and brown sugar, fourth a cup and half a cup. I have vinegar. You're supposed to use white vinegar, but I didn't have any, so I think apple cider would work just as well. A stick of butter, which is half a cup, and some red dye and 1 egg. Okay, for equipment, I have like a mini sifter. I don't know if you call it a sieve or a sieve. I call it a sieve because you sift, you don't sieve. I have 2 measuring spoons, a whisk, which obviously this whisk is not in its best days, but it used to belong to my smaller stand mixer, and I just like it better than the silicone whisk. I have a cookie scoop, a spatula, and then a plate to like rest everything on. So before I begin, you should definitely like the video and subscribe and all that stuff because it helps the channel, and that's kind of important. So we're gonna start. I'm gonna open up the butter. That was not supposed to happen, but we'll roll with it. Obviously wash your hands before you begin, which I definitely did. I forgot to mention that I also have a baking pan lined with a silicone mat, and I'm using a paddle attachment, not the whisk attachment. And I have this cool one that has stuff that scrapes down the sides, so that's pretty cool. I like to just beat the butter just real quick before I add any sugars, but it's not required. And that just breaks it up from the stick. And I'm gonna add the sugars. And I'm gonna beat that. In the meantime, while it mixes, I'm going to have flour. I'm just gonna whisk it a little bit just to make sure I separate all the clumps. And the butter and sugar is looking pretty good already. I like to beat my butter and sugar a lot when I'm making cookies because it makes them fluffier. So I'm going to use the very small sieve to incorporate the cornstarch or corn powder or corn flour, however you call it. For the cocoa, I think it'll be okay to just whisk it in. And same with the baking soda and salt. I'm surprised that it could be even called the baking powder because that usually makes stuff softer. This one is going to be a little difficult to do, I'm not going to lie. It's kind of messy. Some of that obviously did not get into the sieve, but it's alright. You know, it might appear that I don't know what I'm doing, and maybe I don't, but I'm trying my best. Now we have the dry ingredients. I'm just going to whisk them together. And the sugar, butter, and brown sugar have lightened in color, and that's what you want. And you might be like, why is there cocoa powder in red velvet cookies? What I never knew when I was younger is that red velvet has cocoa powder in it. Red velvet isn't even a flavor or ingredient. It's just red dye, cocoa powder, and vinegar is what makes it velvet. So even if it's not a red velvet cake, it probably won't have cocoa powder in it, but it will have vinegar in it or buttermilk or something, because buttermilk has vinegar in it to make it more acidic. So I don't know who came up with that. Actually, I do. I'll write text about it and I'll send a link because the history of red velvet cake is actually pretty interesting. But for red velvet cookies, it calls for a small amount of cocoa. It's not going to taste like chocolate. It'll taste like red velvet, but that's just how it works. So I'm going to remove the bowl. Might be a risk, but as you can see, it is light in color and it's much fluffier. And so to that, we're going to add an egg. Now, a while back, I did an Instagram Live, and I was trying to, you know, show off, do my one-handed egg crack, and I got shell in the eggs. I also got egg yolk in the eggs. I was making macarons, which need only egg whites. Even if there's a little bit of egg yolk, it ruins it. So yeah, then I proceeded to crack another egg into the egg whites without separating it. And that was the last of cooking videos that I did. We're gonna crack the egg like a normal person with 2 hands. Obviously, wash your hands after doing that. And then I'm also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla, which I would suggest is optional because I doubt you're gonna taste it. And I love these teaspoons measurements because they're magnetic. So when you put them away, they stick together and you don't lose them. Now, it says to add the vinegar and red dye like all at once with the egg and the vanilla, but I'm gonna mix it first just so I don't know what kind of reaction vinegar and eggs will have. So I just want to mix it in first. And the paddle attachment like mixes way faster than like a whisk or a dough hook. So even though it's only on like number 2, it sounds like it's really high. Okay, so I'm just gonna scrape down the sides. Now I'm at the point where you might be wondering, why have I not preheated the oven? And that's just because we have a gas stove and oven, so it's much easier and faster to preheat. But at this point, we're almost done, so I'm gonna preheat the oven. And that just goes to 350. I may have added a little more vinegar than I was supposed to, so. Now, I really hate the smell of vinegar or anything to do with apple cider vinegar or any vinegar. But again, you won't taste it. It's just for something. I don't know. I'm not an expert on red velvet. And I really just add the eye with the red dye because that rhymed. You want to add more than you think because look what I did. Look what I just did. Okay, you want to add more than you think you need because the flour is going to mute it out. And right now, I'm not going to lie, this is looking kind of split. So let's hope this turns out well. And I'm adding what looks like about half a teaspoon. And I've used this very like cheap red dye for red velvet cakes before and it tasted amazing. So even though it looks like it was only like $1, it's honestly more concentrated than like the gel stuff. I'm about out of dye and it looks like I have just cut myself or hurt someone. So yeah, be careful with red dye. I'm gonna need to use this stuff, which is honestly kind of old, so I don't know how the quality is going to be. This is gel dye, and that is gel too. Like I said, it was a really cheap gel, so it's not as thick. Look at that. So I'm gonna add a big glob, and this is Wilton's Christmas red. Yeah, I think so. That's giving a very deep color. Honestly, I think we could go darker. You don't want it to be too strong where all you taste is dye. I think we can like go a little bit without going too far. Okay, so this is like very red now. And I'm just gonna scrape down the side of the bowl. So make sure you're scraping down the bowl as you go along. Getting to the bottom, because sometimes, especially with this attachment, it doesn't always get down to the bottom. Nice, like bright, vibrant red color. It's like almost the same color as the spatula. That's the oven. See how fast that was? I once baked at my cousin's house and they don't have a gas stove. And it took so long to preheat the oven and everything. and I wasn't used to that because I've had a gas stove for a while. Pretty much the majority of my baking experience has been with a gas stove. So the next thing that I'm going to do is just add like half of the flour mixture. And you're going to want to start this on low, otherwise you're going to just have a cloud of floury cocoa powder everywhere. And I like to cover it because, like I said, the pedal attachment moves very fast. I'm just going to put some in as it mixes. So I have about like half of it left. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this was 1.5 cups of flour. Wow, I'm literally going to start coughing from the bottom. Well, it smells good. But now the mixer's going crazy because cookie dough can sometimes make it rattle. So that's the end of the mixture. And now I just got it on my shirt. I just made it worse. Is it better? I'm just going to do this really carefully and hope that this doesn't shake the whole house. Okay, and we have red velvet dough. So I'm surprised this recipe does not call for chilling your dough, and I don't know if that's how crumbl does it, but I'm going to follow the recipe because it has great reviews and it says it tastes just like crumbl. But I'm used to always chilling cookie dough for at least 30 minutes to an hour so that it doesn't spread too much. Okay, so if you're a cookie dough eater, you can go ahead and eat the spatula. Eat the spatula. You can go ahead and lick attachment, but I don't. And also I have my retainers in, but I'll explain that in my teeth video coming, hopefully the end of the month. And by this point, both of my wisdom tooth vlogs are up, so you can go ahead and watch those. So while you're mixing it, in the end, you're gonna add 3/4 cup of white chocolate chips, and this is obviously a little bit more than 3/4 cup, but the more chocolate chips, the better. So I'm adding that right in. You don't ever want to like over mix your dough, so when you're adding add-ins to cake, to cookies, to cupcakes, whatever you're doing, you mix them in when you can still see streaks of flour. So by the time the chips are mixed in, the flour is also mixed in. And this is a thick dough. I'll like roll up my sleeves for this. It smells really good. It smells just like red velvet. It is red velvet, it should. This is what the dough is looking like. It's super pretty. So crumbl cookies are like notoriously big, and I have a tablespoon cookie scoop, which is not big. It's like a normal size cookie. So I'm going to be doing 2 scoops per cookies, and apparently this makes like 8 cookies. So I'm just going to take a good scoop. And yes, this is a really nice cookie scoop. It's the Reed Drummond cookie scoop, and it was like $8, but I think it's worth it. It has flowers on it. So with clean hands, I'm just gonna roll it into a ball. And one of the things that crumbl does that I find in like most recipes is you break apart the cookie and then smush it, I guess, so that it's like all lumpy on top, but I don't know how good I am at this. I'm normally not looking for lumpy looking cookies, so the first one might not be the best one, but is the first one ever the best one? Now with most things, like some of the chocolate chips have come to the bottom, so I'm just like digging deep in the bowl, trying to get as much chocolate chips. And these are huge, I'm not even joking. This is this big. That's like the size of a cookie when baked. I feel like these are also gonna spread and touch, so I'm gonna put them 2 apart. And this has 12, so I should have room to have them separated. That was way more than a tablespoon. Let me not fill the other one too big. See how big this is? I do like though, when you break it apart, you get the chocolate chips right in the middle are now on top. So you get more cookie than you normally would. Sorry, I mean more chips than you usually would. I'm not gonna lie to you, I think this is gonna make more than 8 cookies, which isn't a bad thing. More cookies is always a good thing. I don't know which side to put on top. They both have like a lot of chocolate chips. So I'm not used to having 2 different angles, so I shouldn't have raised that up. We are going to form the last cookie, and then I'm going to put them in the oven. And I should have like maybe 3 or 4 left in the bowl to make. Well, as much as I really want to put these in the fridge, I'm not going to, and I'm going to trust the lady who made the recipe and hope that it turns out all right. So these are the cookies. I'm going to put them in the oven. And I'm baking them on the middle rack. I always like baking on the middle rack so that the air is circulating. So we're gonna put the timer on for 9 minutes. All right, and I will see you when they come out. Okay, I don't really know what to say about this. I mean, they look like I just put them in the oven. They kind of looked cooked. Like, they seem really solid, you know? I feel like this went wrong. Like, no clickbait. This one looks fine, but they're so lumpy. Like, I don't really know what's going on. This one looks fine, this one looks fine. I mean, look at the texture, like, it's not focusing. It looks cooked. I feel like I just want to like smash it down so that it cooks, but that won't cook it, that'll just make it more dense. I'm gonna put it in for like a minute more, and then, I don't know. The next batch, which is only gonna be like 3, I'll spread them out a bit. I'll help them out, you know. They just need a little help. They didn't really do much spreading, so I guess it's just how the cookie crumbles. Get it? Because it's a pun because it's a saying, but also because it's crumble cookies, you know? Okay, they're all right. You know what? I shouldn't judge a cookie by its shape, besides the fact that it looks a bit lumpy. I'm gonna let these sit for a second, and then I'm gonna put them onto my cooling rack, and then I will scoop the last 3-ish cookies. Since certain individuals have started eating my cookies, I'm going to take them off. Honestly, like, I haven't really tasted it. I tasted a crumb. A crumb? I don't know. It tastes good, it's cooked, it just is thick. So on the second batch, I'm gonna spread it out just a little bit. And I'm just gonna clear the stuff that's here. And I'm gonna put the other ones in the sheet. And like they are supposed to be, they will be served and eaten warm. Give me like 2 seconds, and I'll do the rest of the cookies, and then I'll give you a review. So these are not crumble size, these second batch, but it is what it is. And this one is very much lacking in the chocolate chip department, but it'll be okay. I should put 1 in each row. We're gonna put them in the oven for 10 minutes because I did 11 minutes in total, but I think 10 minutes should be fine. Okay, so we have some burnt chips here. It seems safe, okay. They didn't spread much, but apparently they taste good. So I'm gonna taste the ones that are on the cooling rack over there and see how they turned out. I don't know which one I'm gonna try. I think I'm gonna try this one. Honestly, it smells like a crumble cookie. It's really pretty. It's very thick. I'm gonna break it in half. See the cross section? Well, that's a nice thick cookie. And it's cooked all the way through. Try this bit. Wow. Wow. It's a very rich cookie. Like, it's very soft and gentle. It's not like I'm describing a person, but it's a very soft cookie. Despite its thickness, it doesn't taste like a thick, dense cookie. It's a little, just a smidge bitter from the dye, so I think I used too much. But also, it's a little bit salty. So I don't know if that's because of the baking soda or salt, because I added a little more salt than asked for, and I also used salted butter. So I should probably dial it back on the salt if I were to make these again, and on the dye. I think it's too much dye. Other than that, like, it's a really good cookie. I would recommend the recipe. And I think if you, unlike me, are making this for Valentine that you have, I think they would appreciate it. It's good. Just dial it back on the red dye. I think I did a little too much. It's really good. I think I'd give it like a 4 out of 5. Granted, I made it, so who knows if I'm just giving myself a good rating. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you want me to do more baking videos, I can totally do that. And you should follow my baking account that I have on Instagram. It's at Kumi Cakes, and I'll tag it and put it in the description, and it's also in the link on the About section on my channel. So thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, click really any of the buttons. Help push the video out, and yeah, I'll see you next time. I forgot to mention, this is the last video before I turn 18, so next week will hopefully be my get ready with me for my 18th birthday. It's really sad. Yeah, my last video as a minor and a child. Oh, camera's dead. The camera was not dead. Oh my gosh, it was filming.